Hi guys, I'm totally randomly showing up on a Sunday with very strange lighting because there's overhead lighting and I'm anyway, I had a little spare time and I thought I would hop on and see if anyone is around. You guys might hear a whooshing noise as the Blue Angels are flying overhead, so perfect timing for me to go live. But why not? I thought I would just jump on and see if anybody else was around on a Sunday afternoon and had questions, wanted to talk. I can give updates on what's going on with me. Um, what is going on with me? I'm on just entering week 4 of like a 5-week mini cut, which basically is just a sort of more extreme period of losing a little bit of body fat before I enter into the holiday season. It's going well so far. 4 pounds down. My goal was 6. It's going well. It's been a pretty extreme experience. This is intense for me. I'm not a fast weight loser. There were 2 double negatives in there. And so I'm doing a pretty intense experience. And so today I actually decided to do what could be termed a diet break. So I brought my intake back up to more my maintenance level to get a little bit of mental space today. It feels great. I feel like it's Christmas and Thanksgiving rolled into one from an extra 300 calories. So it's very exciting. And then back at it tomorrow. I'm feeling really tired. I got horrible sleep last night. Great time to go live with video. But I was like, you know what? If I'm not real with you guys, who am I real with? That's fair. That is strange. Isn't that strange? But that's the way life works sometimes. So, what's up? Do you have questions? Do you have things you want me to talk about? I figure I have a little bit of time and I might catch the people who are available on Sunday that aren't available on Tuesdays. Do you guys know that I go live usually on Tuesdays? Tuesdays at 5 p.m. in California. So, what else is going on? I am currently actually this lovely garment you see is a pajama top from Target. It is so comfy. It is like the softest thing ever. It's all I want to wear. But it's a cute little. It's just a top. It's not like super flattering or anything, but it's so soft, and it has matching pants, which I'm not wearing at this time, but I will be wearing later. Anywho, what I did a post today on Instagram and Facebook, I think, and what I was talking about was I could go get it, but I'm at my folks' house right now, and I put on one of my mom's coats, and it fit me perfectly, if slightly baggy, except the the sleeves are rolled up to about here. So I pushed these sleeves up, but you can see this is a normal sleeve length for my size, but I pulled the sleeve length up because that's how I like life. But this jacket I tried on of my mom's. Um, Jessica, I know I'm wearing pants. I'm not wearing the matching pants. I am indeed wearing pants. They just are not the set. Um, so yeah, put on my mom's jacket and it fit perfectly, kind of baggy. And one of the things I struggle with is that I tend to buy clothes too big for me. I realized I come by that honestly because my mom is like 5 inches shorter than me and her coat fit me. So I was like, and she's like, she weighs less. We're proportionally probably, she might be even proportionally a little thinner, though she doesn't think so, but she is. And I was like, oh, we both have body dysmorphia and buy several sizes too big. Anyway, I think one of the things that's a real struggle after you've lost a lot of weight, at least this is true of me, is it's very hard to figure out what clothes should look like. Because once upon a time, my goal in clothes was to look not fat. I mean, just to be really honest, right? For it to like skim over my body in such a way as to give the impression that I was smaller than I am or I was. And now when I buy clothes that fit that way, they just look too big. And so it's a whole perspective shift on what I'm trying to achieve with my clothing. And I don't even know what, like I do know and I don't. So, like, when I really think about it and I try stuff on, I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. But I have to force myself when I go shopping to bring in a size smaller than I think I'll wear and try that on first, and it usually fits. So, like, I'll bring in like 3 different sizes of the same outfit and, try the smallest one on first, and I'm like, "Oh, yeah, that's the right size." Occasionally, it's the medium one, and, granted, I like comfy pants, like, currently, I'm wearing something with a like a drawstring, um, so, that's an issue too, but you gotta wear more fitted clothes if you're trying to it's hard. I mean, you can wear whatever you want. If you wanna wear the biggest clothes that are like 12 sizes too big, well, until recently, what's her name? Oh gosh, I'm so old. Billie Eilish was into that, right? So you can do it. It's a style. It's just so many of us I see going out in the world and having no idea what size we wear. Just it's very clothing becomes very confusing when you're now in a body that you actually want to like enhance the shape rather than just disguise the shape. Anyway, bring a friend is what I say. Um, let us see. Melinda asked, "What do I do to lose? What did I change up? What do you eat in a day?" Good question. So, over the course of my keto experience, um, hold on, stop. I get the irony of talking about close-fitting clothes while I'm wearing pajamas. I totally get that, but that's the way it goes. I'm not. I don't consider you guys out in public. Whatever. I'm doing laundry and hanging out. Um, so early on in my keto journey, I was very keto. I kept my carbs 20 grams or under total. And then over time, I lost 60 pounds doing that. Then I stalled for a very long period of time. And then I raised my protein and lowered my fat a little bit. And eventually, I came to a place where now I eat probably more carbs than I ever ate on my keto journey. I'm still in ketosis most of the time, but I will eat pretty. I don't want to use the word unlimited because that implies that I don't have a limit, but I don't hit my limit because it's high enough. So factually unlimited, leafy green vegetables, things like that. I don't eat. Usually, I don't eat, starchy carbs or things high in sugar for the most part. But I will have a little bit of fruit and a little bit, and like I said, sort of, I let myself as big a salad as I want to these days. Um, and so I'm definitely higher carb than I used to be. So that's one shift that I've made. Now, I don't necessarily think that that higher carb has helped with the fat loss, but it's a balance of things. And I tolerate a little more carb than I used to. I'm not insulin resistant anymore. And I used to be very insulin resistant. But I've lost another 34 pounds, give or take a few ounces. Doing sort of more liberal, like more low carb or higher veg keto, with a high amount of protein and a lower amount of fat. And so I look at my calories. I include calories in how I evaluate. And so at this point, I know I know what my how my metabolism reacts to the foods that I eat. I track that. I track my macros. I track my caloric intake, and I know what my maintenance level is. So, if you kind of look at steps, I would say the first step is to know what your maintenance level is. What amount of food, of what types of foods, what macros does maintenance look like for you? Does staying at that level where you're neither gaining nor losing weight? You just maintain at that level, really knowing what that is. And then from there, you can make adjustments to try and gain or lose body fat. And so that's what I do. I know my maintenance level at any given time, which can change over time based on how much activity I'm doing. Have I lost or gained lean body mass? Am I working out? How many steps am I getting? Like all of that goes into my figuring. And then from there, I drop my caloric intake mostly from fat because that's the macro I have to play with. I don't play with protein much. I need enough protein, and protein makes me happy. And then my carbs are already pretty low. There's not much wiggle room in there. It's my where I have the wiggle room is really in the amount of fat that I eat. And so I play with that, and I use that as a way to toggle up and down what my weight looks like. And so, yeah, that's what I do. Um, oh, and what do I eat in a day? So I can tell you, what did I eat today? So I made earlier in the week some pumpkin danishes. Crazy but true. So I'm putting a recipe for this up on my YouTube channel, but it's basically like similar to Maria Emmerich's egg white bread, but done in a Danish style. And I use whey protein, not egg white protein, because I tend to think egg white protein doesn't taste very good, just to me. You do you. And then I put in some ricotta cheese and some canned pumpkin that I've mixed with some keto chow pumpkin spice mix. And so I put that together and then I put it in a data. So I'll put the recipe up within the next week, I promise. So I had two of those for breakfast, which is nice. They're like this big. And so I had two of those with some coffee. And then at lunchtime, I had a mess of eggs. I had a bunch of eggs. And then will have for dinner a burger, basically a hamburger patty, and I'm going to do a lettuce wrap. I'll probably have some pickles with that. I'm going to have some olives, maybe some cut up veggies. I'll put some sugar-free barbecue sauce on it. And then I am going to have dessert. And the past few days, I've been making something called protein ice cream, and I've been really into it because you get a giant bowl of this ice cream. It's a lot like a Frosty. But I'm not doing that today. Today, I plan to do Greek yogurt with cocoa powder in it. I have some very nice cocoa powder, and so I'm going to do that. Um, and so, yeah, that's not an unusual day for me. Although usually for dinner, I'll have a giant salad with some steak. But tonight, I feel like a burger. And instead of a salad, I'm just doing cut up veg, like more like finger, like crudité kind of thing. Very similar to a salad, just in a more deconstructed format. So that's, kind of how I eat these days. Um, and, I'm at this point, really happy with my ability to, well, I could be happier with my metabolic rate, I will say. But I am feeling happy at my ability to lose body fat when I want to. And so it's always a balance between, am I willing to do the things it's going to take and what I want, right? And sometimes it's not worth it. Like over this Christmas holiday, I'm not planning on trying to lose body fat during that time period. But I am right now. Someone has commented, um, wow, I'm getting what do you call them? I'm getting the trolls. Oh my God, can you shut up for 10 seconds? Sure. There you go. You're welcome. I'm talking on the internet. If you don't want to listen, you can go away. The other thing is, though I really support people who are trans, and absolutely, I'm not trans. I'm born a woman. I'm continue to be a woman. Uh, and you're right, it was 12. Um, but if I were trans, I would tell you, but I am not. Anywho, um, let's let's go. Wow, this is really interesting. All right. Jean asked, what do you need lab comparisons to figure out you're more insulin sensitive? I got my insulin, so you can get a C-peptide, a fasting insulin. You want to get those to test your um, insulin resistance level. So you'll probably want an HbA1c, a fasting glucose, a fasting insulin, and a C-peptide. Those are your best bets. I'm just taking a moment to block some people. Um, so Kathy, for the ice cream recipe, you're going to start with some type of protein powder. Um, uh, you're going to put that in you need like a high powered blender. I actually end up using my, what do you call it? Food processor, because my blender is not up for the task. So you put in like a serving of protein powder, whatever kind you want. I've used Equip, which is like a beef protein. Then I add in a bunch. What do I add in? I add in like a serving of protein powder, about 2/3 of a cup of almond milk or some type of milk type thing. I might add in a little cocoa powder if I'm doing chocolate. Then you want to add in about a quarter of to a half a teaspoon of xanthan gum. That is essential. You need the xanthan gum to make it creamy. And then a bunch of ice, and then any other flavorings you want to put in there. And then you let it whip. It'll be a little loud. Let it whip until it kind of gets poofy. You need to let it go for a couple of minutes, and then it'll be like a frosty. Um, what is my recommendation for eating the day after a massive cheat day? Angie, I would say, first of all, I would ask yourself what brought about the need for the cheat day? I don't really do them. Like today, I'm saying, hey, I feel the need for a little bit more food. I'm going to add in a little bit more food. Um, and so I'm eating a little bit more, but I'm doing it in controlled fashion. If you're doing planned cheat days, I would say, maybe plan a little more control, like days where you're eating a little more of what you want, but you're doing it in a more controlled manner so you're not feeling so bad the next day. Or maybe you might say, like, was it unplanned? And then, kind of getting to, well, what's going on? Are you eating enough most of the time that you're not feeling so deprived going into that experience? So I just try very hard not to feel like I'm having cheat days. If you're feeling super bloated, I would say it's just going to take some time. Drink a lot of water, eat enough protein, don't starve yourself, and it will pass. All right. Ellen says, are comments different on YouTube versus Facebook? Yeah, I think that I get more haters on YouTube. YouTube just attracts them. It's the way it goes. Um, Tammy says, 4 years ago, I lost 80 pounds on keto. It used to really bother me. Now I'm like, ah, whatever. I mean, no, people being rude still bothers me. I probably shouldn't say that out loud because, that's what they want, but they don't bother me like they used to. Tammy says, 4 years ago, I lost 80 pounds, met my ideal weight for your age. Okay. Then had an accident, gained 15 pounds back, stalled for over a year and a half, slowly allowed carb creep and discouragement to get the best of me. My podcast this coming week is about the dumbest reason that we fail, which is quite honestly that we give up just before it gets good. So just so you know. I've gained 23 pounds back. How do I get the scale moving again? I know what to do. It just seems not to work like it used to. So, absolutely. You're older. It's a different time. Your body's responding to things differently. The circumstances are different. It's not going to be exactly the same as it was last time. Also, when we lose body fat and we then regain it, oftentimes it's harder because when we lose body fat, we tend to lose a little bit of lean body mass, though we can mitigate that to some degree. So now when we regain weight and it's all body fat, our body composition is in a worse place than it was before we regain that weight. So it will be more challenging when you do the yo-yo. The yo-yo makes things harder. And so all you got to do, and I say it like it's easy, is you've got to figure out what works for you. So look at how you're eating now. And step one is to clean that up. Take out the kinds of foods that don't work for you. So there are going to be foods that don't work for you, whether those are foods that they're like a gateway drug. When you start eating that food, you tend to overeat and things go poorly for you. So you've got, that's one, or it's like, when you eat these things, it opens that doorway, or when you include these types of foods, your hunger isn't under good control. So get rid of those kinds of foods. Those kinds of things don't work for you. They might work for you in the future, but if they're not working for you right now, just don't concentrate on including those foods in your diet. Then you're gonna go to, how much are you eating? So I would track your macros for like 10 days, figure out what your intake is like, look at that compared to what your weight is doing. You're going to get a baseline. Once you know that baseline, you can make adjustments from there. So, so many people, they go to an online calculator that will tell them what their macros should be, but that's just guessing. What you can do to be much more accurate than that is to actually track your intake and come up with an educated decision about what to eat moving forward from there. So how I suggest doing it, and this is what I do with my clients, we track for a good 10 days. We track their weight. We want their weight to be relatively stable over those 10 days. You figure out your average caloric intake. You figure out what's your optimum protein intake, subtract that from the caloric intake. That's what's left over for your carbs and fat. Your carbs are going to be relatively limited because you're on a keto diet. If you're following this, keto or low carb. So that's going to be the smaller number, and whatever's left over, that's the fat. Now, if you're trying to lose body fat, that fat will be reduced slightly because that's where that surplus is going to come from that you're getting rid of. So now you're eating in a way that your body has to seek energy from your body fat rather than from your food. Now, is it all about calories? Absolutely not. It's also about your hormones. But if we've done that first step of eating in a way that works best for our body, then we've already kind of handled as much as we have control over around eating in a way that's hormonally appropriate for us. And then we play with the calories. I don't start with calories. I go to calories once we're eating in a way that works for our body. So hopefully that made sense. Liz says, how much xanthan gum for ice cream? I do about, my recipe, I do about 30 grams of protein powder, and then I'll do about a quarter teaspoon of xanthan gum for that ratio. So there are a bunch of protein ice cream recipes out on the internet. You can Google it and come up with a bunch of them too. You'll dial it in. Do not spill the xanthan gum on anything. It is so slimy and so hard to clean off. So maybe pour that over the sink. Rebecca says, I'm struggling at the moment. Everything I eat goes straight through me. Ugh. So you got the runs, huh? Even as simple as a piece of steak, I do have IBS. Could it be the fat? So one of the things that slows gastric emptying, slows that digestive process for a lot of people is actually fiber. So when they go low fiber, some people actually have that faster emptying. So you might try looking at if some fiber might be helpful actually. So eating more leafy greens in your meals for some people can curtail that problem. Terry said, thanks for tips about calories and carb Jenga. I was carnivore for 2.5 years, lost 94 pounds, stalled 8 months, switched to keto, and thanks to my tips, seeing the scale move again. Oh, good, Terry. I'm so excited about that. Kim says, I think I need to change something up. Feel great. Over 3 years keto, pretty much carnivore now. The scale will not move. Want 10 more pounds gone. So there's this period where we go through a period of time where I would say our our journey is very much about optimizing our health, right? But then sometimes on our journey, we get to a place where it's really about aesthetics, where we have gotten insulin sensitive. We've become healthier. We're metabolically relatively healthy. We can exist in the world in a pretty healthy place. But then we have aesthetic goals that would are still within the range of healthy. We're not getting, hopefully, not getting to a body weight where we're now under healthy. If you get my context. But but there's a range of healthy. And so I'm not against having aesthetic goals. At this point, I have aesthetic goals, right? Um, and so sometimes we have to push the envelope a little bit more when we have those aesthetic goals. And so for me, that included being more attentive to caloric intake, which is sort of like you feel like a really bad keto person when you start talking about calories because so many people on keto don't talk about calories. But how I explain it is like you've got two kids, right? And the first kid, you don't have to tell them to go to bed, you don't have to tell them to get their vegetables. They just sort of naturally fall into line. And then you have another kid, and that kid, it's like screaming matches to get them to bed. You cannot get them to sit down at the table. Like just trying to get the two kids to follow the same course of action, but the first one just kind of fit, and the second one, it's a struggle. And some of us are the first kid and some of us are second kid. When you're the first kid, sort of the general keto advice works. You just start and you keep going and you finish and you get there. But for those of us that are strugglers, we have to tinker more and we have to look at things that maybe that first person who just happened to luck into being the right person in the right place at the right time with the right metabolism and the right reactions and the right hormones fit, lock, and key. And for us, we need a locksmith. To mix my metaphors. So Ellen had mentioned that she just started an egg fast. Good on you, Ellen. I don't love egg fasts. I don't really do them, but if you like them, more power to you. I'm not like, I don't think they're the worst thing in the world. They're just a form of extreme caloric restriction for most people. They're also something that when you limit your food choices, a certain degree of food boredom sets in, which can be helpful for some people. Food variety can lead to overeating, which is why sometimes being really like repetitive with the things that you eat and not being super adventurous can for some people really help them stay in line in terms of what they're eating. I love eggs. I don't want to hate eggs, and I feel like that would happen. I'm looking. I might have missed a question or two, so I'm sorry if I did. Amy said something about bread, but I don't know that I saw. Let me look if I can find Amy's comment. Oh, Amy said, what's your thought about real fermented sourdough bread in terms of adding in limited carbs? So I'm from San Francisco where sourdough is a thing. I think the issue is how do you do with gluten? Now, sourdough tends to be easier on people's system because it's more fermented. That wheat is more fermented, but it's still wheat. And a lot of people just have issues with wheat, even in the sourdough form. So I would say it's very case by case. In general, I tend to suggest people go gluten and wheat and grain free if they're trying to be keto. I think it's a lot easier. And then individual tolerances will vary in terms of your ability to consume any form of that. And certainly, even the fermented sourdough is going to be very high in carbs. But if your carb tolerance is higher, you might do fine on that. Or sprouted grains like your Ezekiel bread, which is sprouted grains. Does it sound? Which is a similar to like fermentation. some people will do better on that, have less of an intense blood sugar spike, and have a better gut reaction because of that fermentation or because of that sprouting. But it's still not gone, right? There's still some of those elements in there. And because so many people are sensitive to it, I feel like when in doubt, leave it out is a good rule of thumb. But if you want to experiment, you can. Sally Jo says, help, I am a carb addict. Do you think it's best to do cold turkey or in a slow way? Honestly, my personal opinion is it's better to do it cold turkey. I have met people, though, who did it in stages and they did well that way. So I think that the stages works for some people, but if you really feel like an addict, I feel like cold turkey works better. Do I recommend apple cider vinegar daily? No. I mean, I don't not recommend it, but I also think it is a little bit overhyped. There's a little joke among people who talk about keto on the internet. If you want your video to get a lot of views, then you recommend apple cider vinegar on it. People love to hear about apple cider vinegar, but I mean, I love apple cider. I use it on my salad all the time, but no, I'm not like obsessed with apple cider vinegar. I think there's a hummingbird right outside the window. I think there are some benefits, especially if you're consuming carbs. There are blood sugar lowering effects of combining those carbs with some apple cider vinegar that has shown some significance. But on an already low carb diet, I think that it's minimally helpful, but it's tasty. Michelle says, what is the simply remove for strict keto? Maybe I need to go back to basics. Okay, so if you want to go back to basics on keto, I would say is eat fatty meat and medium fatty meat. It doesn't have to be like super fatty, but eat meat that isn't super lean. Eggs, and stay away from any starchy vegetables, any high carb vegetables. Stick to leafy greens that are very low in total carbs. That's the basics. I mean, really, you're just focus on getting anything more than so you want to limit your carb grams, your total carb grams to 20 or 30, 20 to 30. And that includes counting things like erythritol, fiber, all that. I would say, over time, I've kind of gone back and forth, but really, I think we're better off counting total carbs than net, even on the sweeteners, even if that means now you're counting 30 instead of 20. I think it's just a slightly more honest way to do things and is helpful for us, because once we go down the slippery slope of net carbs, well, it's slippery. It's very slippery. Aaron says, any thoughts on reverse dieting? It seems to work for guys. No, I'm super into reverse dieting. I credit reverse dieting with the thing that got me unstuck. My program, Keto Unstuck, is almost all about reverse dieting. I think reverse dieting is essential. I think so many of us get stuck in this sort of spiral of eating less and less and less and just not seeing the success we want. I think reverse dieting is essential for those of us that struggle with fat loss. It's not just for guys. I think it's maybe more important for women, quite honestly. Roxanne said, I went to a kid's birthday party. It blows my mind what people eat. I know. It's like once you've been away from that world, it's sort of like, wow, what's going on here? Jamie says, 6 years keto. The last year my body is all wacky, gained about 10 pounds. Eating the same way, does the body change? Sure, our bodies change over time. Absolutely. More than anything else, though, the way we eat can have some effects. And I think that reverse dieting is something that can be beneficial for some of us that have been eating in a restricted fashion for a very long period of time. So I have lives and podcasts and interviews on reverse dieting, so you can always look for those on my channel. Aaron says, stage paradigm of carbs with good electrolyte supplementation helps avoid the keto flu. Well, yeah, mostly the electrolyte supplementation helps avoid the keto flu. The keto flu is really mostly an electrolyte depletion issue. Yeah, there's a little bit of energy wackiness with going cold turkey. But for me, just the step down approach, I would never step down enough. When the door was open, I didn't do well. So it's very much, in my opinion, a personality thing. And I feel like we can balance it out by proper electrolyte supplementation. And so doing things like drinking element, I've got my little electrolytes here. Making sure you're getting plenty of sodium can be very helpful. um Rux, but yes, for some people that is helpful, and for some people they really struggle with electrolytes, and for those people I would say the step down might be useful. Kind of depends if you're going physiology or personality. um Roxanne says, I did it in stages. The last thing was Quest bars and cookies. I was addicted. Yeah, those things can be useful in the right circumstance and very unuseful in the wrong circumstance. um Terry ripped the Band-Aid off. I hear you. All right. Hey, Mary Jo, nice to see ya. So, Melinda, I've done a podcast with Robert Sykes on reverse dieting. That might be a good place to start. So, reverse dieting, I'll just give a quick summary. So, reverse dieting, so if you think about it, when you've been eating at a certain level for a long time, you can think of that as the floor, right? You're eating a low amount, you've been eating that for a while, that's the floor. If you want to continue to lose body fat, sometimes you have to get above the floor to get back down. And so you need to stair step your way up to eating more for a while and then maintain your weight at a higher caloric intake. And so you can think of that reverse dieting as walking up the stairs, trying to find the ceiling. So trying to find the level of intake at which you start to gain weight. And then you want to operate under that level. So you want to see, what are my maximum caloric intake that I can hit without gaining significant weight. Now you're going to gain a little weight because you're going to gain some water weight. There's going to be more food in your system, but you don't want to be gaining a lot of body fat. Obviously, that's the opposite of what most of us want to do. So, but you want to enter a period of time when you're at your maintenance intake. And so that reverse diet, you're going to be up at your maintenance, you're finding your maintenance, and then from there you're going to kind of see if you can push that ceiling a little bit higher so that you can be eating more. And so some people can find that they go from, barely maintaining their weight at 1,200 calories over the course of several months, being able to maintain their weight at 1,700, 1,800 calories. Now, at the same time, they might be increasing their activity a little bit. They might be working on their sleep. You're going to work on a bunch of health issues at the same time, because now you've got more energy. Your body has more to work with. You're going to work on some nutrient deficiencies. It can be a beneficial time across the board, and it sets you up for future fat loss success, though you're not going to be losing body fat during that period of time, but you're setting yourself up well for the future. So Robert Sykes is a great person to look at with that. There's somebody named Lane Norton. Now, he doesn't teach keto, but he talks about reverse dieting, so that's another source of information as well. Sheena says, with erythritol and sugar alcohol, does that impact ketosis? Can I not count the carbs and be okay with under 20 grams? Um, for most people, erythritol and good sugar alcohol, so not maltitol. Maltitol is basically sugar. But for erythritol, I'll just use that one specifically. Most people will find they maintain ketosis just fine while using erythritol. However, I do think it might not be the best thing to net those out. Now, at various times I've said go ahead and net those out, but I think ultimately it might be better to uh, include them, but allow yourself a budget for things like sugar alcohols on top of your other carbs. Kathy, I'm sorry you got here late. You can rewatch. You can see the fun we had with trolls. Um, Jamie says, thoughts on Zip Fizz? It's not my favorite electrolyte. Element or Redmond's Relight are my favorite electrolytes. Get those. Um, Aaron, that's not what I'd call reverse dieting. Um, exactly. but maybe we're just explaining it in a different way. We might just be explaining it in a different way. Um, Jim Melissa says, what would you say is the absolute key to successful keto? Staying curious and aware, and being aware that ultimately your commitment is to your health, not to like the keto police. If that makes sense, right? So keto is a vehicle we use to get in better health. It's not the only vehicle, and sometimes it's not the right lever at all times. So am I saying that you shouldn't be keto? No. But you might be doing great on keto. Your diet is great, but you're not sleeping well. And sleep is actually now the lever you need to pull on harder, right? So I think keto is a great tool, but overall our commitment really needs to be optimizing our health overall, of which keto is one of the tools. Um, Terry says, what do you use to thicken something other than xanthan gum? I actually don't generally use xanthan gum as a thickener. It works in this ice cream recipe. For thickener, I usually use konjac or glucomannan. Same thing. They're just two names for the same thing. Jamie says, I have increased exercise. Will that cause weight gain? Yes, but in a good way. So when you first start or increase exercise, more water is pulled into the muscle, which will cause you to weigh more on the scale. It does not cause an increase in body fat, though. So stop obsessing about the scale weight when you're doing something that's causing some water to be pulled into your muscle. It will make you healthier in the long run. Joy says, what if you do not like beef or seafood? Can you still do keto with chicken, turkey, and pork? Absolutely. Michelle, is there a less expensive way to check your blood to see if you're in ketosis? The meters are so expensive. No. If you want to check your blood, the blood meters are the only way. Now there's a couple of different brands, some of which are more expensive than others, but you need something that tests beta hydroxybutyrate. Now there are certain breath meters you can use that test acetone. There's one from BioSense. That meter is fairly expensive, but you only have to ever buy it once, and then you don't have to buy any strips for it. You just breathe into it. So over a long period of time, that would be potentially less expensive than something you have to buy strips for. And Michelle, I would say you don't have to test. You don't have to. You don't have to test if you're in ketosis. If you keep your carbs under 20 grams and you eat appropriately throughout the day, 99% of people will be in ketosis. Aaron, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. I realized I was like, when I reread it, I was like, she's kind of right. It was just the way we were saying it. Please don't apologize. I shouldn't have said anything. Roxanne says, is there a preferred keto ice cream? Halo Top, Rebel, Keto, Enlightened. It's my go-to when I'm needing it, but never know the best quality. Sad, but the real question. It's a fine question. I would think, really honestly, of all of those, the best quality one is probably Enlightened, in terms of what I know about the ingredients they use, which is kind of a little industry insiders thing. They all have something in it that's basically modified corn fiber, and it'll look the same on the label on every brand, but the grade that you use can vary. And I know from doing a little sleuthing that the grade that Enlightened uses is better than the grade that some of the other brands use. So I would say Enlightened is probably your best bet. Keto, the brand Keto Bar, is probably in that same better category. Rebel is sort of in the middle, and Halo Top's on the worst. So if I'm choosing a container of ice cream, I will choose the Keto Bar one or the Enlightened one. Joy says, what is my opinion doing keto? I answered that. Okay. Kathy says, how on earth do you try to eat more? I haven't been calorie counting, just eating as much meat as possible until I'm full. So how's that working for you? So not everyone needs to track. But I would say if you're not seeing the success that you want, then you should probably track so that you can get just a baseline of what's going on. Kim says I had to stop. The keto mode just stresses me out. Totally understandable. Um, Aaron says, I like Kim's suggestion to use glucomannan as a thickener. I have problems with things like cognac needles, noodles, not needles. Yeah. So cognac noodles are basically a lot of cognac or cognac, not cognac. That's different. And that's a lot of fiber. So if you're fiber sensitive, you're going to need to drink a lot of water when you eat cognac noodles. If you're using cognac as a thickener, you're using like a teeny tiny little amount. So very different, but it still might be a gut irritant for some people. We all have different kinds of guts and it's sensitive for some people. Teresa says, I struggle so much with constipation on keto and carnivore. Well, interesting. Okay. So if you're constipated, the first line of defense, and this is from Stephen Finney, who's kind of the godfather, grandfather of keto, he would say most people who are struggling with constipation on keto or carnivore, they need to look at their sodium intake because sodium allows water to be pulled into our intestines and allows things to move through. So I would check on your sodium intake if you're struggling with that. If that, and then I would also look at maybe you might need to add some magnesium because that will also help things move through your digestive tract. So yeah. So to Kathy and others, if you're eating carnivore, if you're eating keto, but you're doing it sort of more intuitively, you're just eating to your hunger. One of the things that I would say is if you're not tracking, but you're seeing success, you're seeing progress, things are going well. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Keep going. If things have stalled out, if you've been seeing months of nothing happening, if you're not seeing the kind of things that you want to see in terms of achieving your goals, then I would say track for 10 days. Track really carefully. Weigh and measure all your food. Put it into a tracker like Chronometer and then evaluate. Chronometer has a great feature which you can look at the average. So you can average your intake over whatever period of time you want. And so then you can look at your average and compare that and look at like, should I be seeing success here? What's going on? Then you can tinker. If you don't have that data, you can't really compare it to anything. And so you just kind of are like left in the abyss of feeling. I feel like I should be doing better, but I don't have any data to look at. And that for me makes me feel very insecure. I like data. So if you're doing well, keep doing it. If you're not doing well, maybe you need something to look at to evaluate if the success should be happening, should not be happening, and what needs to change to make it happen. So that's my best advice today. I just heard my earbuds say, we're about to die. So, that noise. So I'm going to hop off. Thank you for staying with me. I appreciate you all. You're the best. And I will be back on Tuesday evening. Bye, guys. Oh, hi, Connie. I saw you just said hi. Hi. Bye.